Hey there. Okay, so doing a character build walkthrough for Batman Gotham City Chronicles tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to think of your character's name, top there under the general mark under the character worksheet, okay? You have first and last name, which is your character's real name, okay? If your character has a secret identity, okay, that would be their hero, villain, tag name, whatever, hacking name, etc. Something that they go by when they're doing their alter stuff. That would be that one. So if you were filling out one for, say, Batman, your first and last name would be Bruce Wayne, and your secret identity would be Batman. Okay? Second thing you want to do, okay, you're going to determine what mode you're going to do. There are 3 levels. There are the Streets of Gotham City, Shadows of Gotham City, and Wonders of Gotham City mode. The biggest drawbacks on each of those is determines what kind of character and what kind of scenario you're running. This is typically determined by the GM, okay? The next thing you want to do, all right, you're going to find a profile, okay? There are different profiles in the book under each level. So, for instance, in our example character that I'm doing here, okay, his name is John Smith. His secret identity is the Card Master. We are playing the Streets level game, and the profile that I chose is Smuggler. Okay, he does drug running, gun running, all that stuff for the mob and the seedy underside, and anybody who's really willing to pay him. He doesn't really have a code of ethics to certain people, so he might run some for the Maronies, Cobblepot, aka Penguin. Anybody willing to pay him to do so. You need something in or out of Gotham. All right, Card Master's the guy you go to. All right, so I picked the Smuggler. Now, under each profile, okay, there are things that say Smuggler, Serviceman. There are other profiles to pick from under that, okay? Under everything, there are different things. You're allowed to pick your own character and create it the way you want to, which is why at the end of each one of these, at the ends of the Streets of Gotham City or Shadows or Wonders, there is a generic profile for that particular mode, okay? You have a physical and specialized character, okay? And then a flexible character, okay? Something you just kind of, hey, I don't quite know what I want. We're going to throw them in here. I want to give them a backstory, but none of these fit what I want to do. You have that option, okay? The biggest thing on each of these, you look over here, and under each of these profiles, there's these boxes, okay? Now, each of these boxes, they're going to tell you what your hit point die is, okay? What your exploit points are, your melee and ranged attack bonuses, and your CP, okay? We're going to ignore that for right now, for a second, okay? The thing I want you to pick next is you're going to look at your primary characteristics with an edge, okay, which is right under that, all right? It's still in the same in your profile. For instance, the Smuggler, if you want to follow along, it's on page 28. The Smuggler, primary characteristic with an edge, says you get a choice between dexterity and strength. For this character, I want him to be a little bit more agile, a little bit more movable, so I put him in his dexterity, okay? At the very bottom, I'll tell you your finances. Now, instead of giving you gold or pieces to keep an eye on or whatever, it's generally, pulled in this whole thing for your character. What kind of finances you have. They're divvied up, but for this one, it says moderate. So you would go to the other side, your second page of your back of the character sheet, under equipment, and you'll just notate it out that you have a moderate finances. Now, with your GM is okay with this, they can attempt to roll I believe it is a D20. If you give me one moment. Okay, no, it's a D6, okay? And you have a test of luck, okay, to see if you can do well off. You take your D6 and you roll it. You have 2 outcomes, and only 2. If you roll a 6 on your D6, you can move up to the next highest level of your finance class. You get 1 chance. Next level of your finance class, okay? If you roll a 1, your character suffers a step back and you go down. So if you're at moderate, so these are your levels of finances. You have destitute, found on page 43, by the way. Destitute, poor, moderate, comfortable, well off, millionaire, and billionaire. Okay? You have that opportunity to do so. But again, you know, you're taking a chance of going lower too. So you still have 1 in 6 chance on either of those. Any numbers in between, nothing happens. 1 roll. Okay, so you can fill that out under your equipment under finances, just to keep an eye on what you have. Okay? The next thing you want to write down is your hit points die. That's not going to change. Okay? So for a smuggler, that will be a D8, which is located right here under your secondary characteristics. Okay. So we have all of that in. Next thing we want to do is we want to do our traits and possibly some disadvantages. I'll explain them. So your traits and disadvantages, they begin on the right side of page 37, okay? And all the way up till about page 40, 3/4 of the way. And that's the end of disadvantages. Traits, you pick 1 trait. You must pick 1 trait. It must be aligned to your character's backstory or profile. For instance, okay, I picked determined under the trait. Okay, each of these has a thing, but if you're looking for determined, the character will gain a 5+ bonus for their willpower test to resist intimidation, physical, and psychological pressure. He's a smuggler. He feels like the cards are in his thing. When he needs something done, he's going to tell you. And if you're going to try to, threaten him or boss him around, maybe not getting paid, it's not going to really work very well. So you have that one. Now, you get 1 trait and only 1. Disadvantages, okay, are optional. They add a handicap to your character. However, you can pick 1 or 2 traits or disadvantages, 1 or 2 disadvantages, and they have, they're pretty serious setbacks. So you really don't want to do more than 2. You're going to have a rough time. But if you go through those, each trait or each disadvantage that you pick, you can have 2 extra points to place into your character, your characteristics of your character, okay? Strength, constitution, dexterity, on and on, okay? So, we have that now. You have your traits and disadvantages. For me, I picked the trauma trait, okay? So under trauma trait, for example, a tragic event has happened in the character's past. A loved one was assassinated before their eyes, a terrorist bombing, a violent attack, etc. Every time they roll a critical fail during a test, are under intense pressure, or find themselves faced with a situation similar to the one that caused the trauma, in the GM's opinion, they must perform a willpower test. This book says difficulty of 15. If they fail, they become subject to a stunned state. No action is possible, and -5 defense for 1 round. Okay? So that's in there. Again, you can jot note down if you know what it means. If there's anything, I'm sure your GM is going to have a copy of this book. Okay? If you don't already as well. Now, next. After we've done that, you have a set of ways. Under your character profile, again, for me, smuggler, it'll tell you your initial ways, okay? You get a choice of the way of the ranged weapon, the way of melee, and 1 more way to be chosen from either way of physical prowess or way of danger. Go take a look at what those do, okay? Your ways will begin on page 52. If you're at streets level ways, you're looking at your first few pages, okay? Everything is headed up. On page 52. There's a key that'll tell you what the letters next to the ways, level 1, level 2, etc., mean. For instance, some may require an action to use. Some are just absolutely free and you can use them without doing anything else, like a free action. Other ones you are limited and, you know, requires an entire game round in order to be used. Like in combat, you know. Some require movement, some are just passive and, you know, and then not activable. The principle of activation does not apply to this capacity. Some are that way. So for instance, like as example, for an NA, Rich for the Way of Arts. Rich, the character is well known for level 4. The character is well known artist and immediately receives a sum of $50,000, which is added to their revenue. Each year following, for the following 10 years, they will receive an extra $50,000. So that's pretty simple, you know, depending on how long your game sessions will last, you know. If you do a time jump, hey, factor that in if you keep the character. So, as an example there, you get a little bit more income. So, already, this has told me that I have to choose, I get Way of Ranged Weapons, Way of Melee, automatically, okay? Those two are written at the very top, in the little small box under Initial Way 1, Initial Way 2, and then you'll have a third Initial Way box there, okay? That was where I was given the choice between the Way of Danger and, I believe it was, the Way of Danger or the Way of Physical Prowess, okay? The three that I picked were Ranged Weapons, Melee, and Physical Prowess, okay? Now, take a look at your character's CP in that little gray box under the profile. It tells you, for me, it tells you two. There is a trait, and I read one of them. There's a trait called the Adventurer. This is why we waited a second to do this. If you were to choose Adventurer for your trait, your character will gain an extra 2 capacity points to spend on these ways. So every time you reload and you level up, you get another, instead of, it would be 2 before. I didn't choose that one. So we're starting with 2, okay? You don't have to write that anywhere. You can, if you'd like, just make a notate somewhere that you will have 2 capacity points. There's nowhere to put that, okay? So, you have the 3 ways, but you can't use them. You have to spend 1 capacity point in each level. So, for me, that means one of my ways, one of the 3 ways that I have, won't be able to be used at the start of this game, okay? So, I chose to do the Way of Melee, which again, I chose, you get level 1 because your character starts at level 1. If your character started at level 3, you can spend the CP all the way up, but you have to do level 1, level 2, level 3. That's self-explanatory. And Way of Physical Prowess, okay? All right. So we've done that now. I have chosen a disability, or a disadvantage. I have chosen a trait. Got my hit die down. All right, I think now it is time we start moving on to our characteristics, okay? So, when we're divvying out our characteristics, that's your strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, perception, and willpower. Those familiar with TTRPGs already know, but they are right up here in this little box, okay? You automatically start with at least 8 points, okay? And then the GM will dictate how many points, it's a point pool, how many points in that point pool you can add in addition to those 8 points. So, for example, Streets of Gotham City, the book recommends anywhere from 14 to 18 points. Shadows and Wonders, anywhere from 18 to 24, okay? I chose Streets, and I gave the character 16 points from a point pool, okay? And I divvied out everything here. As you see, everything started at 8, and then you add in your point pool, and then this right here is an additional plus 2 points. I just put it in 1. You can do 1 and 1, however you want. This additional plus 2 right there, that is because I took a disadvantage. So everything else gets changed, okay? And then your modifier scores change as well. It's pretty universal when you're doing TTRPGs, whether that be Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, you know, all of the other ones. when you have these kind of abilities and everything, it's pretty much the same table. 10, 11, you get a +0. Anything less than 10, you start going down to your negative on your modifiers, and you're, going up. I will tell you, at this stage, beginning, you're making the character. For streets, your character cannot have more than 18 points, according to the book. 18 points, and then no more than 20 for shadows or wonders, okay, to start. All right, there we go. So you divvy them up. You can't put 0 in something or less. Okay, so we have that done. We have our modifiers, okay? So the next thing we want to do, we will go ahead and fill those in. So your value here, so I've got, all right, strength, I have 12. I see 12 in my constitution, 12 in my dexterity. All right, intelligence, I have 10, 10, and 10. So my modifiers are +1, +1, +1, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that's not going to do me too much, but it gives me a slight edge, especially with the dexterity build, okay? All right, so the next thing we do, we've invested our CPs into 2. We have done our characteristics. Now we're going to choose our character's ethics, okay? Now, ethics kind of comes to a play. Excuse me. Not looking for experience. Apologies, flipping through the book a few times. Okay, so after picking our character, ways is a wonder, and you gain experience based around like these big deeds you do. It's not nothing you're gonna have to micromanage either. You do a great thing, hey, you're level 1, you do a great thing, GM goes, hey, now you're level 2. You will start leveling up pretty quick in the early on parts of the game than you will in your later parts of the game. The next thing you want to start working on is your character's ethics. Start at level 1, okay? Your character has 2 points to spend on ethics. This is chaotic good, chaotic evil, righteous good, all of these different ones. But in here we have order, anarchy, justice, and crime, okay? These are located right here, all right? Bottom part of your character sheet. You have 2 points to spend out. They don't have to be in the same one, okay? Order is showing how, how attached an individual is to public and social order, The rules got to apply, like you're a cop. You're a straight and narrow cop if you put both of those in there, okay? So like a score of 1, you have a character with mild interest in order. You have Hawkfire, Scarecrow, and Black Canary. Y'all remember Black Canary was a criminal before she was a hero. Score 2 and 3, respects laws, rules, regulations. You got Batgirl, Bane. Bane's a little iffy according to what some comics are. Some say that, he does have a situation where he's not trying to actively break the law. If you read Nightfall, he's really just trying to cripple Batman. That's it, But, it's there. He's not going out mindlessly killing people. Other comic iterations say different. I get it. Now, justice, crime. If you want to take a look at that, these are on page 48 and 49 of the War book, on the core book. I decided to put both of mine in crime, okay? My smuggler, he is, laws just have no moral connotation, then simply impediments to stop them from satisfying their desires. These are characters like Catwoman, Clayface, Hush, Killer Moth, Okay. Next thing you got to worry about, okay? You're going to start figuring out your exploit points, okay? Your melee attack, range attack, exploit points, special attack, HP, and defense, okay? Now, when you're doing that, these all go along with your mods, okay? So, for instance, your exploit points, which is a game's meta currency, Sorry, I can't talk today. So when you use exploit points, excuse me. All right, one moment. Just want to say what the book actually says these are. So I'm trying to explain. So I can't quite. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so apologies. Okay, so expert points. All right. EPs represents a small number of points that a player can use during the game to help their character accomplish exploits. By performing a successful test, for example, the number of EP is determined by the profile you have chosen for your hero, to which is added the willpower mod on how they're used. Okay, I apologize. All right, so under expert points allow heroes to get a bit of help from the universe. Each expert point spent allows 10 to be added to the result of a d20. Using one expert point is done after having discovered the result. So if you roll and you get a 3 or a 4 and you're like, I want to go ahead and burn one of those, make that a little better, then you could be, a 13 or 14. Only one expert point can be used per round of combat or of chasing, etc. During any combat, spending an expert point allows the defense score to be increased by 10 against just one attack. And then certain ways give characters the possibility of using exploit points in ingenious ways. Okay? There's a lot to it. If your way follows it, it will say exploit points are only regained after the adventure has ended or for every 4 to 8 hours of play. As soon as a break or a positive event allows the characters to reset or get their confidence back. Basically, situation of, long rest for a D&D. Okay? If a test is successfully performed, spending one EP transforms it into a critical success. Expert points in role-playing. EPs are also a way for the GM to encourage players to get theatrical and really become their characters. A great piece of acting and any other exception in-game effort that the other players appreciate can be rewarded by an immediate gain of 1 EP. Hey, it's a reward. EPs for NPCs, we're not too much. And then you're looking into clues and tests. Okay. All right. So past that point. So that's more. But your expert points. That's what they do. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have that. So your EP is under your character, and that is bolstered by your willpower mod. So for instance, I don't have that one. It's 0 in willpower mod. So EP is 2. So you would write it like your HP 2, and then a max of 2. Okay. You have your HP. All right, which is your HP die plus your Constitution mod. To start, everyone starts at the max of their HP die, okay? 4, 4, 8, 8, 10, 10. I think that's the maximum that one goes. And then plus your Constitution. So for me, that hit die is 8 plus Constitution, which is 1. So your max hit points to start with are 9. Okay. Your defense, okay, is 10 plus your dexterity mod. All right, 10 plus 1 is 11. All right. Hi, sorry. Picking up where we left off. All right. We just done the defense. All right. Which is 10 plus your dexterity modifier. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is our melee attack, ranged attack, and special attack. Okay. Your melee attack, which, excuse me, I'm sorry, will be under your base thing. So, for example, under Smuggler, you have a melee attack of 1 plus 1, and range 0, or melee attack 0 and range plus 1. Okay, I'm going to do my melee attack, strength plus 1, range 0. Now this goes into the next thing. So melee attack is that plus your strength mod. So that will actually make my melee attack plus 2. Ranged attack is based on your dexterity modifier. That makes my ranged attack plus 1. This is added onto your character bonus one. And there's no special attack listed. Don't have any weapons that have a special attack. So 0. Okay. Special attack is determined for whatever modifier that you're using it with. Okay. That is a case-by-case type of basis. And there we go. That is the bare bones of making your character. The next thing you can do, get with your GM. Talk about what kind of weapons you want to bring to Gotham City. There are a long list. You know, how much they're going to cost, what level, you know, you're at. Can you afford it? You're not going to be able to afford a tank if you're destitute, you know? So it's part of it. There's a list of vehicles, their average costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, under one final thing I do want to say with that, with costs, one final thing to add, you can look into buying any kind of armor, as long as you can hold it. You can look into costs, and then under your finances, one thing about this book that I really wish they would have added was a index, so you can keep an eye on where things are. Oh, also as well, if your character wants to learn any languages, there is a section here on page 50 of the core rulebook. How well the character speaks their mother tongue and maybe 1 or 2 foreign languages depending on their intelligence mod. If your intelligence mod is -2 or less, the character is illiterate and speaks only their mother tongue. -1 to 0, the character speaks, reads, and writes their mother tongue incorrectly and also speaks the language of the environment they live and work if it is a different one. +1, the character correctly speaks, reads, writes both their mother tongue and a language of the environment they live and work on if it is a different one. And above 1, each mod point gives the character an extra foreign language as long as their past allows them to have learned it. And Hero's Pass. The last step in creating a character is to flesh them out a little, defining their main traits, the environments they live and work in, the details that set them apart, and the way they conduct themselves in their profession. There are more details. It is in Chapter 4, The Roleplay of Heroes Becoming a Character in Gotham City. In the book, it is page 198. And you'll find a lot more advice about making a rounded character to bring them to life. I do want to quickly add under all these, excuse me, on finances. 1 moment. I do want to say real quick, okay? So under your finances that you roll in your equipment, if you look over here on page 96, under equipment, okay, that's chapter 5. When a hero is created, the player has a certain amount of funds. This sum represents the money immediately available for the character to spend without endangering their lifestyle, home, or financial equilibrium. Each month the hero lives through the game allows them to pay their general expenses and accrue money, an amount 1/10 of those noted below, which are determined by their finances. Okay? If you're destitute, you have $5 to spend. That still keeps everything, over your house, and you're not blowing bills. You ain't got to worry about paying bills. Poor, 200. Moderate, 2,000. Comfortable, 10,000. Well off, 50,000. Millionaire, 700,000, and billionaire, $50 million. Okay, and those are done per month. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So under that, you kind of just want to put it is, again, it's a pool. It's just kind of giving a general idea about how much you're able to spend and the time that it'll take to accrue these things. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you.